Greetings and welcome to the Father Sebastian podcast. My name is Father Sebastian, Master Fangsmith of the Sabretooth Clan, impresario of the Endless Night Vampire Ball, and author of the books Black Veils and Strigoi. Today, I bid you welcome to this quest I have to explore the personalities of the darker side of these genres that I find beautiful, which is magic, paranormal, vampires, and rock and roll. But today we have a very special guest, a dear friend who has sadly left our beautiful valley here in California and moved over to the East Coast. He is the gentleman psychic, Richard Lael.
Hello, Father Sebastian. Can you hear me? Hello.
Greeting. I can. You're loud and clear, Richard Lael.
Thank you so much. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm sitting in this fabulous chair you found for me.
You know what? My magic powers work all across the country. I'm so surprised and pleasantly so that it found its home, and I'm in love. It looks amazing.
I want to make this chair more famous than me.
It's pretty fabulous chair. It is a pretty
Yeah.
fabulous chair. You got lucky.
Well, it matches my logo. It's pretty cool.
It does. I don't even remember how far away did you have to drive to get it?
I went down to Orange County, and I was in Victorville at the time, so I just cruised down there in a horrible rainstorm, and there was clusters of cars on the highway, and thank God I had my express pass to go in the lane where there was no cars. But it was a rainy day, and I managed to get it out of the rain and brought it into my studio, and it's nice and safe and warm now. Don't worry about it.
Well, good. It looks magnificent on you. I'm so glad it found its home.
My old producer suggested that I get a practical background, so I figured a pitch black background with a gold and red chair would be great, and I envisioned it, and then you found it. So I can't thank you enough for making my dream come true of
You are
a
so
comfortable throne.
I
You
will say
know,
one of my magic powers is finding anything on the internet. I can't promote myself worth crap, but I can find red chair or sterling silver cufflinks or finials on the end of a staircase, whatever they're called.
I had a dream that I got into the antique dealing business, and you were the guru of that business. So maybe there's a opportunity waiting for you.
It is possible. It is possible. I do love antiques. I don't go to the many thrift stores or antique stores here in Long Island because it's more of a West Coast thing. There's not a lot in this area, and
Really?
there are antique stores, but then you go into these antique stores and they know what they have. So the markup,
Oh.
you're paying the market value. You're not finding these wonderful little things that are off the beaten path. So I don't get to go to them anymore, but I had a little game that I used to play with a friend of mine, and I would say, watch me find the antique in the store. And I would go into um out of the closet or the Goodwill or the Salvation Army. I know the Salvation Army, but I would I would go there anyway because you could find good deals. And I would walk along, and I would, if it would be clothing, and I would put my hand down and I would pull out a waistcoat from the 1920s, or a morning shawl from the 1880s, or it was just one of those things. Or I would walk over and find a 19th century dish that I pay $1 for, and it's worth $1,000.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's one of those. I walk to it and I find it.
Well, what I will say is you are missed here in California greatly. Patty and I speak of you almost every day.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I'm really glad to hear that. Not that you miss me, but I have been missing my friends in California. I don't miss the sunshine. I don't miss I don't
How
miss
vampiric of you.
well, it's funny. I drive my car and I can't drive my car in the rain, but then I wear big hats and sunscreen, and it's fine. But in LA, it's always the same weather. It's always the same. It's nice weather, but I more than anything, I miss what I like to call my family in California. From San Francisco to Orange County, I miss my family.
We miss you too, and you were such a wonderful country part of our culture, and driving up. My parents came by to see. Remember that Christmas a couple years ago before the pandemic,
Oh
where
yeah,
you drove Mr. Satan, your Jaguar. Is it Jaguar?
yes, 36 Jag.
You 36 Jaguar. You were parked in front of Patty's house, and my parents came up and they were like, "This is Hollywood," and 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 my parents were like scared to come in the house. I'm like, "Mom, Dad, it's okay.
The
Your
car
son's
is
a
named Mr.
vampire."
Satan. The car is Mr. Satan. Somebody,
Did you get
I was over near more central Long Island than where I am, but I was over near Sagamore Hill, which is um, President Theodore Roosevelt's mansion, and then he's buried in a cemetery near there. And I pulled up in my 36 Jaguar with the top down. I was about to do a live video, and this car pulled up, and the man and the woman get out. He says, Mr. Satan. And I've learned, I just explain, if you had an old car, you might understand. And he goes, oh, is it just because of the upkeep? And I went, well, it's part of it. But the truth is, like Satan, the car tempts me and is my friend, and then at the same time leaves me stranded whenever I need it the most, or is almost about to catch on fire when I drive to the opera and back. You know, fire is the devil's only friend.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it was a short. It
that's
was
a
just
good
a
line.
short in wires, but I figured it out.
So, what are you doing out in the Northeast? We switched
Uh,
places.
yeah, that's true. Well, right now I am just doing my readings, and I do a show called Scared and Alone, which we did season one. We are now we're on a little hiatus, and then we start back up on season two of Scared and Alone, where thanks to the pandemic and what has happened in the interim, um, we I paint the spirits that I see, and we've got Courtney Buckley, who is usually the one that she's our ghost bait, and we have Dean Hagland, and we have
Ghost bait.
she's the ghost bait, and we have Miss Haley Michelle, and we have David L. Sloan, who is the keeper of Robert the Doll down in Florida. So we've got a
Oh,
nice
wow.
cast, and then for an hour and a half, she explores a house where she's scared and alone, and she's our ghost bait, Courtney, that is. And then I will paint what I see, and then we have a lot of
Oh,
interactions where, oftentimes David Sloan will say, oh, Courtney, I have a really bad feeling. I think you should not be looking into that mirror. And then I'll turn to the camera and I'll say, no, I think you should. I think you're going to be fine. Look in the mirror. And Courtney goes, oh, but I don't know. No, look in the mirror. You'll be fine. But there have been a few times where I've said, oh, Courtney, stop. I'm serious. Turn around, go back downstairs. It's not safe for you physically. It's not safe for you to be here. You need to go back to another place. So that's what I'm doing here in Long Island.
now are most of the where is she located?
She's in Salem, near Salem, and that was where we found Courtney. So we had the National Ghost Hunting Day, and we had people who dropped out, and she was there, and everyone just fell in love with Courtney Buckley. So she
Great.
now goes to certain places, and then when we go a little bit further west, like Indiana, we send in Miss Haley Michelle. She is the paranormal princess, and she has a haunted doll collection, and she's lovely and charming and funny and sweet, and sometimes she gets to be the ghost bait too. And then Courtney will be on the other end, and she'll laugh and say, oh yeah, you need to lie down in that jail cell. Just
Oh, shit. Where can we find this show, Scared and Alone?
you can go to Scared and Alone. Well, the website is coming up, scaredandalone.com. It's not ready yet. But you can find it on YouTube, just Scared and Alone if you type that in. And there are Google searches too. It's everywhere. So anywhere Scared and Alone is sold, that is where it is. Just Scared and Alone.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and I gotta watch this show. and it looks really cool.
It is a lot of fun.
And
It is a lot of fun. Sometimes I'll get a feeling, for instance, because what I do is I'll paint the image of the house or the building that we're in, the exterior, and then I will paint what I see. And usually I like to I never research, I never know when I know that we're going to a place, I look at the exterior picture so that I can match it up. I never do any deeper Google search, and then I will either text the producers or I will text my friend Mary Jane, and I will say, in this house we have da 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 da, and then I paint what I see. And more often than not, we find historic pictures that come up during the course of the show. We find
mhm.
that that is who was there.
Oh
My
wow, that's
painting.
great.
Mm.
Well, just validation for your psychic abilities.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's, where does it come from? I don't know. I don't really understand it myself. I just see what I see, and I believe that time is a persistent illusion.
as one of your alternative personalities says, it's kind of magic.
It's a kind of magic. It certainly is. So funny.
It's- that's great. And how many episodes have you done so far?
We've done the magic number of 13.
Oh, cool. That's my first season too. And what I'm doing is I'm collecting all the people that I've done podcasts with now that I have this magical chair that I can hug.
It's pretty
Um, and,
magical.
and I have my new producer Mike, and we also have good technology and everything. Feel it's right to launch the Father Sebastian podcast because
The timing is right, and what is the old saying? Strike while the iron is hot.
yes. So you were on Ghost Adventures. You had your own
Was
episode.
I
Can you
was.
tell us about that?
Well, first of all, I will say that, as you know, the crew was professional. Uh, Zach he walked in and he was impressed, and he said that it was the feeling he wanted for his museum, and he instructed he instructed everyone to be careful when they moved things. That if they had to move it, they had to pick it up, and very professional, really lovely. And let's see what else was uh, I'll tell you this little tidbit. This part I always think to be funny. So we did the first interviews, and I started getting dressed, and I was getting my bag ready, and they were going to go on to the investigation. And he says, would you mind staying to do a seance for us? And I went, sure, why not? So I went and got redressed into something a little bit more seance appropriate. And he and the other fellows go into the other room, and they start doing an EVP. And I've prepared at this point. I have this is from a synagogue that I do all of my rituals in, and this one is from a church. So I do rituals with both of these. And so at the time, I had put rum in this little silver cup here, and I was focusing on it, and I was focusing on the energy and calling things up. And at that time, with the table, the spirit energy in that room was so phenomenal, because it was that octagonal room on the side. And I'm focusing this energy, and I'm preparing myself and preparing my guides and getting myself ready. And the rum in the glass starts doing this all of its own. And just when it starts doing this, they get an EVP that says take a drink. And Zach, as wonderful and as flamboyant as he is, he says, take a drink of what? Of blood? And I had to laugh because it was actually rum. And then when we go into the actual seance, and I said, and now we raise the glass and we take a drink, and he goes, oh, take a drink. It makes sense.
One of the things that I've always loved about you is you have all these characters and you land on yourself, Richard Lael. You know,
It is true.
so one thing that I had the opportunity to go into your house before you moved, and you had this beautiful Victorian first floor of this
1890.
Victorian house.
1890
What,
Victorian.
1890 Victorian. And what was amazing was just like the antiques and the collection of things that you managed to put into that place, and having tea there. And we had a tea ceremony, we had a seance, we had a Ghost Adventures episode, we had your bedroom, which you made your bed every day. And I was like, does he sleep? Because that bed looks like it's made all the time.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I don't really sleep, but I do make my bed.
And
Makes
I'm
me
like,
feel like
where
a
does
good.
he keep his wardrobe? And
You know,
the
you would be
kitchen.
amazed at what even I have friends now that go, "Where how does all of that clothing come out of that tiny closet?" And I go, "Well, magic." Deedle-deedle-deed.
And the seance that we did with Jack Parsons was really fun.
You know, he after that seance, and we'll talk about that, but after that seance, he actually, I don't know if you know this, Jack made another appearance.
Really?
So in the first seance, it was sort of directed. Jack lived just down the street from where I lived in Pasadena. He was a follower of Aleister Crowley. He was friends with L. Ron Hubbard. So there was a lot of connection. There was a lot of deepness here. And in the first one, as you recall, or may recall, um, when Jack came through, he was a little bit shy and a little bit awkward, and talked about things that I had no idea, robots and things to come, and you know,
He blew himself up. That's how
right.
he died.
It was interesting, and but sometime after, maybe a month or so, maybe two, after the fact that I did that seance with you and Patty, um, these I had a group of people that just wanted to experience a seance. And so I got out my Ouija board, and I never touched the planchette because I don't want to be accused of manipulation. So I called in the spirits, I called in the energies, and I called in the ancestors, I called in those who wanted to speak. And the planchette moved. I said, "Who is here?" And it moved to JP. And the woman to my right, she says, "JP Morgan?" I went, "No, no, no. This is Jack Parsons. I know because I've encountered him." I said, "Hi, Jack. How are you? What would you like to tell me?" And he says, "CRJ9K." And I said, "I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that is." And the other fellow says, "Well, maybe it's a jet propulsion or a rocket or something." And I said, "I don't know. I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't know." I said, "Jack, what would you like to tell me? What would you like me to know? What would you like to speak here?" And he spells out H. Holmes. And the woman to my right, she says, "The serial killer?" And I went, "Well, no. I mean, I played H. Holmes on film for a show called Elevator, but I don't think that was what he's talking about. But
Elevator.
we'll consider it." So I said, "Okay, Jack, I understand that you're here, and we welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. But what would you like to tell me? What words do you have for me?" And he spells out BOOK. And I said, "All right, I know. I still haven't written my book. I still haven't started. I know this is," but I went, "Okay, I get it. I'm supposed to be writing a book that I haven't. I get it." And he basically was gone by that point. We thanked him. At the end of the seance, we let everyone go, close out the spirits, close out the energy, and I did a little bit of Googling. And CRJ 9000 was a rocket ship, like a jet propulsion engine that was made after his death, but was based on his designs. So I went, "Okay, well,
Oh.
that's interesting. CRJ 9000. Okay, I get that.
We
Okay."
should also make people aware that Jack Parsons was the founder of JPL, Jack Parsons Laboratories, which
Yes.
got renamed Jet Propulsion Labs. Okay,
Yes.
because Jack Parsons was fairly controversial.
He was a bisexual occultist. So yes, he was a scientist and a futurist. And so I got to looking up. I looked for Jack Parsons, H. Holmes book, and I came up with a 1941-42 book called Rocket Ship to the Morgue. and it was written by a man whose pen name was H.H. Holmes, and it had thinly veiled L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons. Thinly veiled. It even talks about their home, Jack Parsons' home in Pasadena. And the whole premise of this story is that there is this man named Hilary Folks, who is the heir to a fortune. His father was an author back in 1900, but died in the earthquake in San Francisco in 1906. And so all of these other people they were known as futurists, and they even L. Ron Hubbard, and they wanted to create things that were in the future. They saw things that were coming, and they wrote about it. So they belonged to this society in Los Angeles called the Manana Society, because I see tomorrow, but also because they were horrible procrastinators. And you'd ask them, hey, what are you working on? Oh, I've got a great idea for a book. Oh yeah, when are you going to write it? Manana. I'll write it manana. I'll write it tomorrow. So it was Jack's way of going, you're going to write that book tomorrow? You're going to write that book tomorrow? I still have it. I have half of it written, but I haven't gone anywhere.
Well, you have half of it written. That's a start.
Yeah, it's a start. It is a start.
I'm working on my memoirs right now, and I'm doing it as 10-year blocks. So there'll be the 90s, the 2000s, the teens, the 20 teens, and that way I can expand it as I get older.
Nice. Very good. That's a
Yeah.
brilliant idea. I like that.
I got it from Rob Thomas, from the creator of Veronica Mars. He was doing a Lost Boys show, where he was going to be doing the Lost Boys movie was part of the same canon, but that happened in the 80s, and it would start in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and oubliettes, and it would be the vampires wouldn't age, but the humans would, and each season would be a different decade.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Lost Boys. I wish they did that, but Rob Thomas lost the deal because of the pandemic. A lot of things got shifted up. But so we talked about Ghost Adventures. We talked about the Jack Parsons seance. And one of the things, and we talked about your car. Okay. We need to talk about your fashion, Richard Lael, because this is like you're I don't even know how to explain it. Where do you get your suits?
You know, it's
What inspires you?
I'm really inspired by the 1890s through about the 1930s.
Okay.
Where do I get them? I find sometimes vintage, sometimes they're custom, sometimes I order them online, sometimes off the rack. It just depends on what what I'm in the mood for. And I will tell you though, the funniest thing, and I think fandom can sometimes be a little bit silly, but I am a fanatic about one. Sorry about the cars. About one thing, and one thing in particular, and that is the Addams Family. I am a big Addams Family dork, and when I was a boy, I both was in love with Gomez Addams and wanted to be him. So you might see, even from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, every incarnation of the Addams Family you kind of see in my house and in my wardrobe. It's 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 not kitschy. It's not like I'm trying to be the Addams Family, but I take inspiration from them. And it's also noted that on the list of suggested movies by the Church of Satan, Peter H. Gilmore talks about the Addams Family and says that it is because a lot of Satanists have a similar aesthetic, and the Addams Family teaches you really satanic values to be yourself. And in 1993, the Republicans had run on the family values ticket, so they were anti everything that wasn't white Protestant Christian. And the producers of the Addams Family values, they said, well, families come in different styles and different shapes, and they all have value. So it was politically more poignant than the 1991.
You know, one thing that I will say is that I think that white straight Protestant families, the special ones, are the ones that go to have dinner parties with the rainbow families. That go
Sure.
to have dinner like my friend, she's a Mormon, and she smokes, she drinks, and she her the Church of Latter-day Saints, the LDS, had a Harry Potter night
Oh,
as a
wow.
dorm. Yeah, and it's like it's a big, amazing difference to see the difference between the way that churches were run in the 1990s and
Mhm.
just today in our lifetime. And these kids like don't know what they
Well,
are
you
lucky they are.
I will tell you, I grew up Pentecostal, but I almost became a Mormon because I'm
Mhm.
for all things more men.
Oh, slap, slap, slap.
And then I decided that I couldn't be a Mormon, and I decided that I wanted to be Amish, but I thought it was too restrictive. So I thought about becoming a Mennonite because it was 2 men a night.
More men. Well, the LDS is opening up to LGBTQ queer people, and I'm very happy that I just use the term queer. All right, it
Yeah,
just
it's
it's
it's it's every I like to say GSM, gender sexual minorities, because that
okay.
encompasses everybody from every spectrum.
I just say queer. I've been using queer since I was in high school, and my high school was a Quaker boarding school, and I had an open lesbian teacher in my health class in my sophomore year in 1992 named Carolyn Lyday.
The
And the
Quakers can
Mormons,
be very, very progressive, actually, but go on, I didn't mean to interrupt.
the what I love about them is they're progressive, but they still like, you know, being progressive doesn't mean that you have to condemn straight people or people who are want to live that lifestyle. I think it's important that people of queer or ge- gender sexual
Yes.
minorities um, support the people that support them. Okay.
No, I this is a true story, and I was raised Pentecostal, and then for a long time, I attended a Quaker church. Now, at the end,
Oh,
it was right when I was losing my faith, and I already had questions, and I was already losing my faith, but the pastor was really polite. He was good to me. Some of the more Pentecostal who would just go to this church because it was there, they had things to say that were maybe true. I didn't even I wasn't self-aware enough to even know that I was gay. I knew I was attracted to the same sex, but I didn't I didn't even say the words. The pastor was nice to me, but it was some of the elders that were not. And I was a Sunday school teacher, and I would teach from Grimm's fairy tales, and I would relate it to a Bible story of somehow. And it got to the point where I was teaching such a wide range of students. We're talking from 9 years old to 17 years old. And I knew that they didn't really want to come to church. And I knew that they were kind of getting bored. And I knew that their parents were sort of forcing them. So I said, listen, here's what we're going to do in class today. The Quakers, they never had a pastor, they never had authority. That was what the traditions of the church were. And they would wait until the Spirit of the Lord moved, and then the person would quake, and that person would stand up and give the sermon or
meaning for worship.
right. So I said, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to sit here in this classroom, and if you want, you can close your eyes and meditate on the Lord. If you want, you can stand up and talk. If you want, you can read a book or you could play on your phone. How you worship your God is none of my business. And we're just going to sit here and be quiet. And you know what? I think they appreciated it.
I thought youth group when I went to when I went to a Quaker boarding school, they were traditional East Coast Quakers in Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and I'll tell you that made Father Sebastian really like the first Wiccan I met was there. The first openly like in 1992 having a I used to watch Star Trek with my health teacher's wife, okay, who is a total Star Trek geek. Um, and we would watch Star Trek because I wanted to see this one episode called Yesterday's Enterprise because I had always wanted to see a woman captain, okay, that was strong and powerful and stuff like that. And Yesterday's Enterprise was the Enterprise before Picard, and there was a time warp and this, and I finally got to see it. And I look over, and there's this very obviously queer Star Trek nerd, and I go, "You've been here the whole time, and you didn't tell me that I missed this episode 6 weeks ago?" Because I would see it after school, and we ended up talking. We became really good friends, and her wife, she called her wife in 1992. It was just so relieving to have that beautiful situation where they were married on campus. They walk off campus, they were not married. And she told me, and they lived right across from the my dorm, and I learned how to put a condom on a cucumber in my biology class from a lesbian in when I was 13. And I'll tell you, it was one of the most, like, when I went out into the world, I thought that was normal. And it took the world about 12 years to catch up, 2 decades to catch up.
And now we are Roe versus Wade is almost on the chopping block, and we have sort of gone back to 1952.
I think that I was speaking to a transgender friend of mine the other day who was driving me to the airport. And I go, "It's really nice to live in California or New York, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, you're right." And I'm like, "We don't have to worry about it here, but I saw a really amazing charity. I got to look it up. It's called Elevations. And what it is pilots who, on their volunteer time with their own airplanes, fly women and transgender people for gender affirming care and healthcare for abortions or whatever out of the states that they're stuck in, and they bring them to doctors.
Amazing.
Yes. So I think that there's a lot of people who care.
You know,
And
I coming from Midwest as I did, it is difficult really to see a lot of progress. I have a nephew that I'm not outing him. He's been very public about his transgenderism. He was born female and is male, and he is now much more who he was meant to be. And the problem is that they still dead name him and they still misgender him. And the ironic thing is that they refuse to acknowledge that he is a heterosexual man, but I'm going to hell because I'm gay, but my nephew is not going to hell because he has a girlfriend, but it's different somehow, even though they still refer to the girlfriend as the girlfriend. I don't understand. It's really a weird, convoluted thing.
well, I think that, one of the things that I remember my dad telling me, because I came out to my father as being queer when I was 16, and he goes, "All right, you can't have men sleep in your room." And I'm like, "That's it?" And he's like, "You're my son. I love you. Okay, just be aware that being queer is not an easy thing." This was in the early 90s. And I was like, he's like, "Be careful, be cautious on who you disclose that to, because people won't be as understanding as your stepmother and me."
When I
And
came out, oh, I'm sorry, go on.
no, that's it.
When I came out, I was 25. Well, I was 24, almost 25. I was just about there. And I I had a mentor. I was a hairdresser, and my mentor said, well, he was one of those ex-gays that said, well, when you admit it, then Jesus can heal you of it. And he was kind
Really?
of he was kind of right in the fact that I did need to admit, but I couldn't admit it to myself. Here I was.
Mhm.
I was a hairdresser. I had danced in the ballet. I had done opera. I did a little bit of fashion modeling. I did musical theater.
All the gay things.
All the gay things. The only thing that I have, the only box I haven't ticked is that I've never been a flight attendant yet. but I've done all of those things, and when I was coming out to myself, I worked at the local news station. I was the news assistant, and I did the camera work, and I did compile the news stories, and I would keep time. It was, it was just what I did. And I would drive over to Kansas, and I would listen to some disco music, so gay, and I would change the lyrics to make them even more like YMCA became I am a gay. Or there was I remember looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening. I This is going to be really personal, but I would play it and I would listen. I would sing, "Gotta have some gay sex, baby, tonight." I mean, I was 25, so it was a long time ago, but now I can laugh. It was kind of funny. And then I came out at the time. I was doing I'd apprenticed at the hair salon, and then I went back to school to do hair. And I remember there was a woman named Melanie, and we were all sitting around, and they were talking about things that they like to eat. And I said, I don't eat pork. I just don't like it. It's too salt. I don't like it. I also
Okay.
don't like eating a sentient being. I think pigs are so incredibly intelligent. I don't eat pork. And then I smirked and I said, but I love sausage. And Melanie said, um, sausage is pork. And I said, not the sausage I eat. She goes, oh my God. Oh my God. You're gay? Wait. Okay. Let me wrap my head around this. So at first when I met you, I thought you were gay. I went, that guy is totally gay. He has to be gay. And then you said you weren't gay, and I never saw you with a boyfriend. And I thought, oh, maybe he's not gay. And so for the months that I've known you, I thought, okay, he's not gay. And now you're just now telling me you're gay. And I went, yeah, I've always been gay. I just didn't say it.
How old were you when you came out?
25. I was
Okay, I thought
24
you were.
and like 3/4. I was a few months before my 25th birthday.
When is your birthday?
New Year's Eve.
No way. Okay, we're less than 30 days apart. I'm the January 23rd.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's let's see. I'm a Capricorn. I think January 23rd is what are you?
Aquarius.
Aquarius. Okay.
So let's talk about your alter egos.
Sure.
You're a prolific actor, costumer. Okay. What are your alter egos?
Well,
Which characters have you played?
I have played a lot of characters in my time. Even one that I love that I created myself. We'll talk about the more popular ones, the more well-known ones. But I created one who is an 18th century French monarch who wakes up in 21st century United States and has to kind of piece things together. And he's based on The Emperor's New Clothes. So I'm either fully Baroque or completely naked with a crown. And and
Sounds
so
like one of Freddie Mercury's parties.
right. And so this character's name is Louis XIVII. It's not a real number. You couldn't. And that one is really kind of special. And before we talk about some of the more well-known ones, I'm going to tell you why this one is special to me. So
Okay.
I was living in San Francisco, and this was now a long 15, 16 years ago, and I worked for the San Francisco Opera. I worked in the marketing department, and Halloween was on Thursday, payday was Friday, and I had $6 to my name. That's it, $6. And I went, well, I guess I'm not going out. I would like to have gone out on Halloween. I can't. And I got home and there was a $60 check waiting for me. And I went, oh, okay. I've done, it was some little gig that I did and the payment came through. All right. So I can do this. So I went and cashed the check so I could have a little bit of money to go into the club. And I walked down, I was 11th and Howard, and I walked way down, Oh goodness. Well, wait, I walked the blocks down in the rain to this club, but the costume was the emperor's new clothes. So I had the crown and I had the cravat and I had a sash with all of my medals on it, and I had little lacy underwear and socks with bows and high-heeled shoes, and that was in my closet. So I walked down to this club and I paid the cover and I went in and I checked my invisible cloak at the door. And I walked around as the French king all the time. I was always, and I passed a Marie Antoinette, and she says, um, why are you naked? And I said, you are not fit to be queen. I should have you beheaded. So I did this all night long. And then someone said they had the costume contest and they said, oh, you ought to go up there. And I went, but I am not in costume, but I will permit the audience to see my glorious clothing. So I go up to the stage and I won first prize, which was $600 that I won.
Wow.
And from $6 to $60 to $666. When I returned, I finished getting off the stage and I went back and I retrieved my invisible cloak from the cloakroom, and the woman, she laughed. She goes, "Aha, here you go." And I said, "That rag is not the royal cloak in which I arrived." And she goes, "All right, here you go." And I said, "Oh, Sacre bleu, you have stained it. You have soiled the royal garment." And she's at this point going, I said, "This time I magnanimously pardon you." And then when I went back the next year, they said, "Okay, you are phenomenal. First of all, we didn't know if you're a good actor or if you're a crazy person, but whatever it was working." So that was a character that I did. And I've done him several times. I did a version of him for America's Next Top Model Cycle 19, I think, season 1. It was when they first introduced the boys. So I did that. But for many years in Vegas, I played Freddie Mercury, lead singer of Queen. I played Tim Curry a lot. I was also known for playing Willy Wonka, but I looked more like Johnny Depp, but it wasn't Johnny Depp and it wasn't Gene Wilder. It was my own thing. And I had the approval of the Nestle Corporation, the Dahl Estate, Paramount Studios. They all knew of me and they loved what I did. And in fact, living in LA, are you familiar with the show Family Guy?
Of course.
Of course you are, because you're not under a rock. So there was Family Guy, and then there was the spinoff, which was the Cleveland Brown Show, which was canceled. And the candy store that I worked was in Hollywood. It was right on the boulevard. And so I lived in Hollywood. It was before moving to Pasadena, and I would walk up Sunset and Vine, and then I would stop off at Trader Joe's, and then I would go on from Trader Joe's and walk down to Hollywood and Highland up to the candy store. And on this show of the Cleveland Brown Show, they get the idea that Cleveland wants to work for the LA Dodgers. That's what he wants to do. And his wife pulls this little, I did a favor, now you have to do one for me. So he ends up, the whole family moves from Stewart Bend, Indiana to Los Angeles. And I had this moment of, because they first showed all of the people on the boulevard, and there was fat Superman, and there was crazy Batman, and there was meth addict Catwoman, and these are people that you could have seen in Los Angeles, at least when I was there. And I went, oh, they think we're all crazy homeless drug addicts. Oh no, oh no, oh no. But they singled me out, and Donna ends up by being at some knockoff Trader Joe's. It was like Flapper Vicks or something, but specifically at Hollywood and Vine, which is where Trader Joe's is. And there's a mother pushing a child in a shopping cart, and the kid is screaming at the top of his lungs, "I want Wacky Willie! I want Wacky Willie! I want Wacky Willie!" And the woman says, "Oh no, you can't have Wacky Willie. Wacky Willie is the highest paid children's entertainer in all of Los Angeles."
And
Wacky
you,
Willie was Willy Wonka, which was me.
oh shit. I mean, I have, I think you worked at the
Beetle House.
Beetle House.
Mhm.
Have you done work in Beetle House in New York?
You know, earlier on I did, and where we're still friends, it was just not conducive to financial good health. Because at the
Mhm.
time I was living in Wassaic, which is about 2 hours north,
Oh, I
and
remember the snow.
there's lots of snow and driving and parking, and it would take me three. If it wasn't snowing, it would take me 3 or 4 hours to get there. It's supposed to only take two, and then it would take 2.5 or 3 hours to get home. And then I was working. I was there for 8 hours, and I go, This is not. This is
Just
not worth.
the commute wasn't worth it.
It just wasn't worth it. And then it's a smaller place. The pay was down, and I went, no, no, it's okay. You can do your own. You can do your thing. It's not for
How
me.
big is the one in LA compared to the one in New York?
Los Angeles is massive compared to the one in New York. The one in New York it's about the size of two hallways put together.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's there's a bar and then there's a little restaurant, but it's two hallways.
Okay, and for the last question I have for you, okay, do you think you've never done Jack Sparrow, but you've done Willy Wonka. Okay, do you think that Johnny Depp will ever play Captain Jack Sparrow again?
I haven't given it much thought. I think it's a love-hate relationship because partially, now I am friends with someone who did his makeup. So she in fact did his makeup for all kinds of films that he was in. Um, from what I know of him personally, I don't think that he will ever don Jack Sparrow again. He might surprise me. I don't think he will because it's how many films now? Like 7 Jack Sparrow films. And even though
Mhm.
it was a beloved series, I think he got tired of Disney, and then with this whole the scandal, I think he's just tired.
Okay, because I heard a great news. Okay, that uh, we're gonna see a new Sherlock Holmes movie. Okay, and he's gonna be the villain.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That'll be great.
So Moriarty, like Sweeney Todd character. I think
Brilliant.
that would be great.
I think
So,
would be wonderful. I would
is
I
there
would go
any
see that.
is there anything you'd like to add to our conversation? Is there anything that we missed or skipped or
Well, no, I'll just say my social media so that you can find me. I'm easy to be found.
I miss you so much.
Well, a pretty face can hide a dirty mind. Anyway, so on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, it's Richard Lael, Lillard, Lael. Be careful. There are some cons that try to pretend to be me, but I will never ask someone. I will never go to your page and say, the spirits have told me you need a reading. I'll never do that. I'll never solicit in that way. But you can either do that or find the Gentleman Psychic, thegentlemanpsychic.com, or the Gentleman Psychic on YouTube, the Gentleman Psychic on they're all intertwined. I don't know anymore where if I'm Richard Lael Lillard or the Gentleman Psychic. I don't know. I'm both.
All right. Cool. Richard, thank you so much for coming on the Father Sebastian show.
You're welcome,
Richard
Richard.
Lael. Richard, thank you for coming on the Father Sebastian show, Lael.
Thank you very much. It is so good to see you, and good to see you in good spirits too.
Yeah, it's great. I got married recently, so
Yes, congratulations. I meant to tell you
thank you.
congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, she's a lovely woman, and we just had a vampire trip to the Ren Fair.
I
So
I stalked a little bit of the pictures on Facebook, you and Patty, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful.
it was great. So I'm actually going to go up and see Patty right now. So I will say hi for you if
Send
you
my love.
will
Tell her I
let
think
me.
of her all the time. I never
And
called busy. I'm always afraid I'm going to interrupt.
Well, you should come up to Salem because that's our new East Coast saber-tooth home,
It's
and we'd
not
love to
far.
have you up there.
It's about 5 hours, so it's not far.
So I hope to see you soon. It's been a year since we've seen each other,
Been a year.
and let's not make it much longer
I
for the next time.
appreciate that, and I agree with you on that.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Take care.
Take
Rock
care.
and roll, brother.
Rock and roll.
Thank you for watching. The best way to support us on this vampire adventure is through the crowdsource funding website, Patreon. Please support our sponsors, Endless Night, Vampire Ball, Sabretooth 3D Fangs, and Vampire Magazine. Thank you. Rock and roll.